ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar, my dear friends. This is video number 25 on the Viveka Chudamani of Adi Shankaracharya. This video starts with stanza number 373. Fully detached Samadhi easy. Detach- Detachment is most important factor for achieving the state of Samadhi. अंतस्त्यागो बहिस्तत्यागो विरक्त यव युज्यते त्यज्यत बहिसंगम विरक्त स्तु मुमुक्षया. A man of dispassion alone is fit for this internal and external renunciation. For the man of dispassion, out of his desire to be free, readily renounces both internal and external attachments. In a sense, renunciation means giving up. Giving up of the external world of objects is external renunciation. Giving up of sensuous thoughts of indulgences is internal renunciation. Renunciation, external and internal, can be successfully achieved only by such an individual who has developed dispassion towards worldly things. As a result of sufficient study, listening to a master, and deep reflection, having understood the hollowness of the world of objects, when one develops a sense of renunciation towards them, then alone does one become fit for renunciation, external as well as internal. In fact, it is very easy to give up the external objects. Just walk out, but if you have an attachment for them, wherever you may go, you will create a world of similar objects around you. A man of total dispassion, virakta, alone can effectively give up his attachments towards the objects because his entire attention has turned towards a greater goal. He alone who has developed irresistible passion for liberation and total detachment from the world of objects is fit for complete internal and external renunciation. Incidentally, the word dispassion, vairagya, has two etymological derivations. One is total absence of desire, and the other is spatial attachment. The former implies a sense of detachment from the world of objects, and the latter a sense of attachment to the desire for liberation. Renouncing our present preoccupations, let us march towards the higher. Ultimately, our ego sense can end only through our own inner growth. Grow we must. Stanza number 374. बहिस्तु विषयी संगम स्थांतर मादिभि विरक्त एवं सनोक्ति त्यक्तुम ब्रह्मणि निष्ठतः. Only the man of dispassion who is thoroughly established in Brahma can give up his external attachment for objects and internal attachment to the ego, etc. One who is capable of true renunciation, both internal and external, is vividly described in this verse. Giving up attachment to sense objects of the world outside is called external renunciation, Bahi Tyaga. External attachment is constituted of egocentric desires for an object. Running away from objects is not renunciation. Renouncing the wrong relationship with the world of objects is true renunciation. Objects by themselves cannot give anyone any sorrow. The moment one has the idea, I want them, the objects cling on to him. Giving up the idea of I, my, mine, etc. In short, the renunciation of the ego and ego prompted thoughts is internal renunciation, antah tyaga. Renunciation, external and internal, is possible only for one who has no desire for the sense objects, that is, one who is a viraktaha. He who has desires for the sense objects and has a clinging attachment to them can never give up hunting after sense objects. A dispassionate man can easily give up his preoccupations with objects, both external and internal, because his identification is rooted in Brahma. Only he can renounce who is holding on firmly to the feet of the Lord. He who has given a new direction to his mind towards an inspiring and noble goal can give up all ignoble thoughts and actions as he has no attachment towards them. This is positive renunciation. Just trying to give up things with no goal to aspire to is negative renunciation and will not last long when one is faced with the irresistible tides of enchanting sense objects. Stanza number 375. वैराग्य बोधो पुरुष से पक्षीवत है पौ विजानी ही विचक्षणे त्वम विमुक्ति धो परलधिरोहणम तभ्याम बिना नान्यत्रेण सिद्ध्यति. Please understand, O wise one, that dispassion and discrimination in an aspirant are like the two wings of a bird. Unless both are active, no one can take the help of just one and fly to the creeper of liberation, which grows as it were atop a bungalow. Vairagya is detachment from the world of objects and their tantalizing enchantments. Bodha is subjective knowledge of the higher reality. These two are essential to a spiritual aspirant. They function just like the two wings of a bird in flight. For a man of meditation who wants to soar into the higher planes of consciousness, the two effective wings necessary are Vairagya and Bodha. If these two are not there, the sadhak will not reach anywhere. He may be an erudite scholar, a recognized professor of philosophy, yet for direct spiritual experience, he will need both these. Without even one of these two, no progress is possible. A bird cannot fly with one wing. Both wings are of equal importance. Both must be equal in length and strength. If Viveka and Vairagya are not fully developed in a man, such a man cannot meditate successfully for long. Sri Shankaracharya was not only a great philosopher but also an equally great poet. In his commentaries upon the Gita, the Upanishads, and the Brahma Sutras, Shankara the philosopher was at his best because of the rigidity of the literary norms that he had perforce to follow in bhasha writing and the exactness of the ideas to be communicated. Every word used was of great consequence and therefore it had to be perfect and precise. Hence, Sankara could not exhibit his poetic skill in his commentaries, but he fully quenched his poetic thirst in his works like Bhasgovindam, Dakshinamurti Stotram, and Viveka Chudamani. The subject matter remaining the same, Sankara reveled in poetry in these works. These books underscore the twin aspects of Sankara's personality, the poet and the philosopher. In some of the verses where the ideas are of supreme importance, he expresses them clearly, sometimes compromising his poetry even to the detriment of the meter, while in others there is an exuberance of poetry without any loss of clarity and vividness of the theme. At some places, he lavishly employs more than one verse to indicate the same idea, painting it repeatedly with different examples. Sankara reveled in poetry in almost all the verses of his introductory textbooks, Prakarya Grantha. This verse is an example of Sankara's invocation of Vedantic ideas dressed in his resplendent poetry. For a bird to reach the creepers on the roof of a tall edifice, there is no other method than to fly high with a pair of wings spread out in grace and held in strength. Similarly, to soar high into meditation and to land successfully on the sequestered arbors set on the pinnacles of liberation, we shall need the two wings of Viveka and Vairagya. There is no other way to reach the peak. Therefore, let us try to develop Viveka and Vairagya and equip ourselves fully for the flight to the infinite. Stanza number 376. अत्यंत वैराग्यवतः समाधि समाहितयैव दृढ़ प्रबोध प्रबुद्ध तत्वस्य ही बंध मुक्ति मुक्त आत्मनो नित्य सुखान अनुभूति. A man of extreme dispassion alone experiences samadhi. A man of samadhi alone has steady realization. A man who has realized truth alone is free from bondage, and the free personality alone has the experience of eternal bliss. When a person is not disturbed by the objects, emotions, and thoughts around him, he is said to have supreme detachment. When the objects within and without can no longer tantalize one's thoughts, then alone can one reach the state of samadhi. Transcendental experience is possible only to those who have cultivated complete vairagya. Realization is possible only in the state of samadhi. One who has thus awakened to the supreme state of Brahma, to him alone there is total liberation from all the bondages of sansar. The persecutions of a dream and only when the dreamer wakes up. The liberated one alone can have eternal bliss. This bliss experienced by a man of realization is not dependent upon the objects around. He revels in his own self. Stanza number 377. वैराग्यान् परं सुखस्य जनकं पश्यामि वशा आत्मन् सत्चेत् क्षुद्रत्रा आत्मबोधसहितं स्वराज्य साम्राज्य दुःखः एतद्द्वार मत्सरमुक्ति युतसं समा तत्परम् सर्वत्र सुप्रियः सदा आत्मनि सदा प्रज्ञानं कुरु श्रेयसे. For a self-controlled man, I find no better generator of happiness than dispassion, and if that is coupled with a clear realization of the self, it brings about absolute sovereignty within and without. And since this is the gateway to the damsel of permanent liberation, so for your own well-being, be dispassionate both within and without, always fixing your mind on the eternal self. Complete self-control is the stage when the mind is not running after sense objects, though they may be crowding around and grinning at us all the time. When such a state of balance is attained, I do not see, says Sri Sankara, any other method by which the highest happiness can be gained other than dispassion. One may develop in oneself a temporary capacity to resist the temptation to indulge in the objects around. But unless a person changes his entire mental constitution, his entire values of life within sufficiently so as not to be tantalized anymore by any new arrangement of objects, no enduring spiritual growth is ever possible. This changed attitude is called Vairagya. There is in life of Vairagya not even a trace of pessimism. It is a sense of self sufficiency, the inner richness experienced, a fabulous feeling of joy compared with which the external world of objects is a petty, paltry, filthy nothing. This is the only way by which a self controlled man can yet increase his happiness by gaining the experience of bliss. Along with Vairagya, if such an individual also discovers in himself the positive experience of the bliss of the self, his happiness becomes the greatest. He then becomes independent of the inner world of thoughts, Swarajya, and the outer world of environments, Samrajya, as well kinship within himself in the world of thoughts and sovereignty over the external world of objects. Thus, Vairagya is the gateway to reach the damsel of liberation. Therefore, in all places, at all times, and under all conditions, practice Vairagya and reach the state of liberation. Liberation, moksha, is the ultimate welfare, shreyas. Hence, for your own welfare, constantly contemplate upon the self. Sit in his lap and look at the world. Then where is sorrow? Where is inauspiciousness? Siva, Siva. Stanza number 378. Asham Chindvi Visopmesuhu Vise Visesah मृत्यु कीर्ति सत्य तत्व जाति कुला धमे विभ्रमन्ति मुञ्चाति दुरात्क्रियः देहादावस्ति त्याजत धीषणां प्रज्ञां कुरुस्व आत्मनि त्वं दृष्टा से मलोऽपि निर्द्वं परं ब्रह्मासि यद्वस्तुत. Cut asunder your craving for sense objects which are like poison. It is the very image of death, and giving up your pride of caste, family, order of life, throw far away all selfish actions, renounce your identification with such unreal things as the body, and fix your mind upon the self. For in reality, you are the witness Brahma, untainted by the mind, non-dual spring. The sense objects of pleasure are like poison. Those who desire them are sure to meet with annihilation. Death means change. To be identified with the OET is to live in the realm of change and therefore in a continuous process of death. Hence, renounce the desire for sense objects which are full of mortal poison. Renounce also the vanity of caste, family, and order of life. These blinden your vision and you start seeing things distorted by vanity into a frightening, unreal caricature of the beautiful world. Also, throw away all activities prompted by the ego. That's all desire prompted activity. Renounce the idea that you are the body, the mind, and the intellect. Renounce this attitude, for the not self is permanent. Leaving all these, identify with the self, have the idea I am Brahma, quieten the intellect in steady contemplation upon the Atman. You are the witness, the no looker of an activity. Not getting involved in it is a witness. You are not involved in any of the activities of the body, mind, and intellect. You are a mere onlooker. As a witness, you are ever pure, never tainted. The things that are happening in the BMI are only the expressions of its vasanas. You are beyond the vasanas, and therefore vasanas can never condition you. You are the non-dual Brahma with no otherness. That one infinite Narayana alone are you. In fact, that thou art. Meditate upon this. Stanza number 379. लक्ष्य ब्रह्मणि मानसं दृढ़तरं संस्थाप्य ब्रह्मेन्द्रियं स्वस्थाने विनिवेश्य निश्चल नुष्पेक्ष्य देहस्थितितं ब्रह्ममेक्यमुपैपत्य तन्मयतया चाखण्डवर्तया निशं ब्रह्मा आनन्दरसं पिबात्मनि मुदा शून्यै किं भर्षम्. Fixing the mind firmly on Brahma, the point of concentration, restraining the sense organs in their respective centers, holding the body steady and giving up all thoughts for its maintenance, attaining identity with Brahma and being one with it. Continuously drink the bliss of Brahma in your own self. Of what use are other things? They are entirely false, empty. Establishing the mind firmly in Brahma, the point of contemplation, persuade the sense organs to stay quietly at their respective sense centers. Let not the sense centers in the intellect get excited and run after the sense objects, keeping the body firm in a steady posture. Give up all anxieties for it. Sit in a comfortable posture in which you can easily sit for about an hour without worrying over the limbs of the body. Then meditate upon the self and realize the oneness of its glory within and without. Do not stand apart and try to understand it. You must strive to become it. Tat Mayata. Merge to be one with it, without any sense of separateness. Continuously, without break, maintain the attitude I am Brahma, Aham Brahma Asmi. Thus revel in the self with the wisdom I am one with Brahma. Other than Brahma, everything is non existent, totally unreal. When you wake up, the dream becomes false, non existent. What is the use of the objects of the world? They can give you no happiness. Therefore, meditate and realize the source of all happiness deep within yourself. Stanza number 380. Anatam chintanam tyaktva kasmalam dukh karanam chinte atma anand rupam yanmukti karanam. Having renounced all thoughts of the not self, which is evil and productive of misery, think of the self, the bliss absolute, which conduces to liberation. Worry and anxiety over the not self is evil, full of pains and the cause for all sorrows and agitations. The not self is constituted of the BMI, PFT, and OET. Hence, renounce the pain ridden anxiety about the not self. Renouncing thus constantly contemplate upon the blissful nature of the self, which conduces to liberation from the thraldom of sorrows provided by the BMI, PFT, OET. In the following verses, the ways of contemplation upon the self during the early stages of meditation are advised by Adi Sankara. Stanza number 381. एस स्वम ज्योति शेष साक्षी विज्ञान कोशे विल सत्यजस्रम लक्ष्यम विधाय मन द्विलक्षण मखंडवर्तया मतयानो अनुभावे externally signs this Atma, the self-effulgent witness of all things, which has the intellect for its seat, making this Atma, which is distinct from the unreal, your point of contemplation. Meditate upon it as your own self, eliminating all other thoughts. The Atma is ever self-effulgent. Nothing can illuminate, shedding its light over all our experiences. It illumines the thoughts and emotions in everyone. It is light itself. It is the witness of everything, without any exception, just as the sun is the witness of everything that shines under its light. Consciousness plays about in the intellect in endless varieties. All the functions of thoughts in the mind and intellect are illumined by it, just as the sunlight play on the surface of the surging ocean illumines all waves, ripples, bubbles, foam, etc. that are in it. Establish your mind in the self which is other than the not self. Asad Vilaksanam. Contemplate upon this consciousness constantly without any break. Akhanda Virtaya, as your own self, Atam Taya. Stanza number 382. Etam Chinnaya Virtya Partyantar Shunyaya उल्लेख यनि विज्ञानीयता स्वरूपतया सफुटम. Contemplating continuously upon this Atma with no intervention of any other thought, one must distinctly realize it as one's own real self. Thus, through unbroken contemplation upon this self, which is without any distinction within and without, you shall come to experience your own real nature divine very clearly. When the dreamer wakes up, he understands the waker as his own real nature very clearly, beyond all traces of doubt. Realize this state clearly, Safutam, as your own self, Savrupataya. Stanza number 383. Atra atam tvam dridhi kurvanne hamadishu संत्यज्यने उदासीनतया तेषु तिष्ठेषु सपुट घटाधिपत. By strengthening one's identification with the self and by renouncing all identifications with the ego, etc., one must live with no concern for them as if they were trifles like a broken pot or the like. Constantly establish your firm identification with the experience of the higher. As you move slowly into the higher plane of consciousness, constantly try to leave behind the concepts of the individualized ego, etc. Egoism, chitta, intellect, mind, and body are the different attitudes, the sum total of which is the individualized entity. Leave egocentric attitude behind and move towards the higher plane of consciousness and get yourself more and more firmly established in it. A similar thing happens when you go to sleep. The waking personality slowly gets eliminated and you get more and more established in the deep sleep condition. When you get established in truth, live uninvolved in the things that are happening around. If you participate actively in the happenings around, you will again tumble down into agitations. Therefore, remain in the world, let the thoughts in you dance about, but never get involved with them. If you pour oil or water in a broken pot, nothing will remain in it after some time. If the pot is not broken, the contents can remain in it for a long time. When it is broken, few will come and take it away as there is nothing in it. Remain like a broken pot. If you cannot eliminate the mind, at least make a few holes in it. This is how Kuchela Sudama lived in complete detachment. When his wife, in her exasperation, gave him a talking to, he ardently listened to her and deeply sympathized with her. But the moment she stopped, he started his japa Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is called things going out of the mind, the leaking mind. In this way, ever remain empty, because empty thyself I shall fill thee is the eternal promise of all prophets. Next topic is continuous attention to self. विशुद्धमन्तं करणं स्वरूपे निवेशे साक्षिणे बोधमात्रे शनै निश्चलतामुपायन् पूर्णं सौम्येव अनुविलोकयेत् ततः. By fixing the purified inner equipment upon the self, which is the witness and knowledge absolute, and little by little making it quiet, one must try to realize one's infinite self. A purified mind is that from which the rajas and tamas have been removed. A pure mind is free from its preoccupations with the OET. These extravert preoccupations can end only when the Vasana forces have slowed down. Bring such a mind to contemplate upon the pure Atma, which is the witness of all the moments of the body, mind, and intellect. This is the instruction here. When the witness, the consciousness illumines our thoughts, we become conscious of our thoughts. Consciousness illumines the OET, but the OET are not in the consciousness. The sun is the witness of the world of objects, but the objects are not in the sun. The sun is light alone, the self is consciousness alone, Bodha Matra. In that consciousness, fix your mind, which has been fully weaned away from all agitations. Slowly, slowly bring those disturbances into quietude and rest the quiet mind in contemplation upon the self. As the mind becomes quiet, you come to experience the full, the eternal self continuously and intimately. Stanza number 385. देह इंद्रिय प्राण मनो हमादिभि स्वज्ञान कलित्री खली रूपाधिमी वे मुक्त आत्मा मखंड रूपई पूर्णम महाआकाश वावलोकयेत. Free from all limitations like the body, sense organs, pranas, mind, and ego, which are the projections of one's ignorance, let one come to realize the Atma, the indivisible and infinite, like the great endless sky. The body, mind, and intellect are false projections of one's avidya. When these limiting adjuncts are transcended, the self is experienced like the great limitless sky, Maha Akasam Iva. The outer space is unconditioned and all pervading. It allows all other things to remain in it without itself getting conditioned by them. Transcending all things exists space. Similarly, when the body is transcended, I am not limited by any physical object. When the M and I are also hushed, there can be nothing but pure consciousness. There is no other example by which we can indicate this great consciousness which is all pervading and eternal. It can only be compared with space. Space itself is not the ultimate reality, it is the nearest illustration which can indicate it, inasmuch as it is the subtlest of all elements. Very often, space is taken as an example for consciousness. Since it has the property of sound, it becomes a substance. Things which have properties and are substances are objects finite, ever changing. Since it is an object, it has a beginning and an end. Atma is not space but is like space. It is comparable with the subtlest element space for the purpose of intellectual understanding. In short, Sankara wants us to meditate upon and experience Brahma, the all-pervading and eternal. Elaborating upon the simile like the infinite space used here, he continues in the following verse, stanza number 386. घटकल शकुल सुचिमुखई गगन मुपाधि सत्तै विमुक्त मेकम भवति ने विविधम तथैव शुद्धम ब्रह्मादि विमुक्त मेव. Having dropped hundreds of its limitations such as a pot, a pitcher, a barn, or the eye of a needle, space is recognized as one and not many. So too Brahma is indeed one when denuded of the ego, etc. The example of space given in the above verse is expanded in this one. A pot, jar, barn, or the eye of a needle are the conditionings for space. Pot space, jar space, barn space, and needle's eye space are all parts of the same space and are so called because of their respective conditionings. Space is one with no limiting adjuncts, upadhis. When the upadhis are all removed, the one space remains all by itself. There can be no differences in it. The apparent differences are all due to its conditionings. Similarly, consciousness is one ever free from the concept of PFT. The self is free from all encrustation of BMI and OET. The conditionings around the self made up of the ego and the body mind intellect equipment are only delusory projections of the mind, for the Supreme is ever immaculate. This is further explained in the following verse, stanza number 387. Brahmadistam Paryanta Mirsa Matra Upadhyay ततः पूर्णम सौ आत्मनाम पश्य आत्मना सिथितम. Right from Brahma to the most insignificant unicellular organism, all conditionings are quite unreal. Therefore, one should realize one's self as the only existent principle. Satamba Paryantaha, from the creator down to the most insignificant thing created. All are delusory appearances, they being limiting adjuncts, upadhis. They are all unreal and belong to the realm of matter. From the standpoint of the infinite, the realm of matter exists not. For the waker, the dream has no real existence. The call of Acharya Shankara to sadhaka in this verse is come to experience, pasye, your own Atma, which ever remains as the one self in all. Ekta Atmana Sithitam. In the following verse, we have a conclusive and quite a persuasive analogy to drive home the idea that apart from Brahma there is nothing real in the world of plurality. Stanza number 388. Yatra Bhrantaya Kalpitam Tadvivek Tanmatram Naiv Tasmadvi Bhinnam Bhrantneshi Bhranti Drashtahitvam Rajju Sattva Dve Visu Atam Savrupam. Whereby mistake something is imagined to exist there on right discrimination, the real itself is recognized, there is nothing other than it. With the error removed, the falsely perceived snake itself becomes the rope. So too, the entire universe is in truth only the Atma. When the delusory misconceptions have ended, the substratum is clearly seen. The post is not seen when the ghost is seen. The ghost is seen only in delusion. When the discriminative intellect comes into action, The delusion ends and the ghost is no more seen. Then the substratum of the ghost, the post alone is visible. The post alone exists. When the delusions of the BMI, PFT, and OET are ended, then reality manifests and is fully recognized. When the delusion has ended, the serpent is not seen anymore, but the reality behind the serpent, the rope, is seen. Similarly, the world of plurality is in reality Brahma only. The world is the projection of the mind and the intellect. When they are transcended, the apprehension of the Atma is automatic. Stanza number 389. Swam Brahma, Swam Vishnu, Swam Indriya, Swam Shiva, Swam Vishwa Idam Sarvam, Sav Adanyah Kinchana. The self is Brahma, the self is Vishnu, the self is Indra, the self is Shiva, the self is this entire universe. Indeed, nothing exists except the self. When the ghost was seen, I was threatened by its long hands, its burning eyes, and its bleeding mouth. But when I discovered the post, I recognized that the burning eyes are but the post. The long hands are nothing but the post, and the bleeding mouth is also the post. In the post, there are neither the long hands, nor the burning eyes, nor the bleeding mouth. Similarly, when the mind and the intellect are transcended and the infinitude is experienced, one realizes that the pure self is the creator Brahma, that the same self appears as the sustainer Vishnu. All the deities of the Vedic period, Indra, Varun, etc., are also nothing other than the one self. Parameswara is also nothing but Brahma. The changeable, variable world, the field of objects and beings experienced as this is also none other than the self. Except the self, no one has any existence. When you see the post, the ghost is not available. Thus, everything is in fact nothing but Brahma. Stanza number 390. अन्तः स्वं चापि बहिः स्वं च स्वं पुरस्तात् स्वमेव पश्चात् स्वं हव्याच्यां स्वमुदिच्य तथोपरिष्टात्वस्तात्. The self is within, the self is without, the self is in front, the self is behind, the self is to the south, the self is to the north, so too it is above and below. Everywhere there is nothing but the self. In fact, up and down, north and south, inside and outside, front and back, etc., are all possible only with reference to the body. In reality, they are not there. Even in the experience of deep sleep, they are not with us. Sankara is compromising to a great extent and explaining here to the intellectual experience. The idea is not original. We hear in this verse the echo of Mukundopanishad. Stanza number 391. Trang fen brahm buddhadadi sarvam savrupen jalam yatha tatha chidev dehadde hamantam metat sarvam chidevekarsam vishuddham. Just as the wave, the surf, the whirlpool, the bubbles, etc., are all in essence nothing but water, so too the chit is everything from the body, etc., to the ego. Truly, everything is the homogeneous, pure chit only. The waves, the foam, the whirlpools, and the bubbles, etc., are all in reality water. Similarly, the BMI, PFT, and OET are all nothing but the essence of consciousness, Chit Ekarasam. The essence of consciousness is objectless consciousness. The word consciousness can be used only with reference to objects. The essence of consciousness is pure and uncontaminated by the PMI, PFT, and OET. All these are only illumined by the light of consciousness. Stanza number 392. Sadevedam sarvam jagat vagatam vang mansayo sato अन्य अन्या सत्ये प्रकृति परस्विमिनी स्थितिवतः प्रत्यगय किम मृतसन्नाया कलश घट कुंभ आदे वगतम वद्देश भ्रांत सो महमिति maya madiraya. The entire universe known through speech and mind is nothing but Brahma. There is nothing but Brahma, which exists even beyond the pale of Prakriti. Can the pitcher, jug, pot, etc. ever be anything other than the mud of which they are made? As an effect of the wine of Maya, the deluded man talks of you and me. Whatever exists is Brahma, the pure infinite consciousness. All that is known through the sense organs and the mind is nothing but misinterpreted existence. The objects of the world are known by the sense organs. Those within, that is, emotions and thoughts, are known by the mind. All of them are nothing but pure existence, Sat. The OET are nothing but the self. Those who have transcended Prakriti can apprehend the reality. Prakriti is constituted of the BMI, FT, and OET. The essential reality is beyond all these, and in the final analysis, the BMI, PFT, and OET are all so nothing but reality. Different articles made of clay are nothing but clay. Whatever is perceived as a jar, pot, bowl, etc. in a potter's house is nothing but clay. No doubt they are seen as separate from each other. The jar is not the pot is not the bowl is not the jar, but when one looks at them from the standpoint of the substratum, they are all mud and mud alone. A deluded man alone will say that they are separate. The wise man understands that they are nothing but mud in different forms. The Shruti says that all are nothing but the expressions of Brahma. Yet we say, I have got a separate existence from you, because we are at present drunk with the wine of Maya, Maya Madiraya. In the drunken hallucination of the Vasanas, we assume that we are separate from each other. We are able to recognize the pluralistic world because we do not now experience the one Narayana present everywhere. When I look through a green glass, I see everything green. In reality, there is no greenness. When one looks through one's mind, intellect, equipment, one sees the world of plurality. In Narayana, there is no plurality at all. Stanza number 393. क्रिया समीभिहारेण यत्र नानेदिति श्रुतिः ब्रवीति द्वैतराहित्यं मिथ्याध्या निवर्तये. With many predicates, Shruti declares the absence of duality in the phrase where there is nothing else, etc., in order to remove all false superimpositions. What has been said so far is not Shankara's own opinion. In order to establish that, Acharya Shankara is quoting this verse from the relevant Upanishad. With such statements, the scriptures at many places have indicated the absence of all duality in the ultimate truth. It all amounts to an assertion that Brahma is the only reality. We have projected this pluralistic OET because of our BMI to remove from our minds this misconception of the reality of OET. Shruti uses many predicates or verbs in her statement, as in the example given here. Sankara means the objects perceived, the emotions felt, and the thoughts conceived are all superimpositions upon the reality, which alone is ever present everywhere. In order to remove these superimpositions and to unveil the reality behind them, the scripture gives us various indications of what exactly constitutes the infinite truth. There, where we see nothing, hear nothing, meaning where perception has no objects to perceive, where the mind has nothing to feel, where the intellect has nothing to think about. In those still moments of meditation, when one is neither in a condition of sleep consciousness nor dream consciousness, but where one is aware of the transcendental, that the state divine is the experience of the infinite. In short, where the body, mind, intellect, perceptions have ceased, meaning where the ego has vanished, there reality comes into vision. The state of spiritual awakening is indicated as the truth. This is the ultimate goal of all seekers, wherein individual ego disappears into the vision of the transcendental reality. Stanza number 394. Akas Vanirmalam Nirvikalpam Nisimin Spandan Nirvikaram Antarbahi Sunne Mananne Dvem Swam Param Brahm Kimasti Bodham. Like the sky, the Supreme Brahma is untainted, absolute, limitless, motionless, and without modifications. It has neither an inside nor an outside. It is one existence and non dual and is one's own self. Is there any other thing to be known? Thereafter, for more than a couple of verses, Sankara tries to give us the technique by which the mind can be brought into the state of divine quietude. When the highest can be availed, a mere theoretical explanation of such a possibility would become a mere utopian idea. The Aryans have no patience with such dreams. So, everywhere in the scriptures, after such deep and subtle statements of truth, the teacher invariably gives elaborate guidelines on the know how and technique by which such a high state can be gained in experience. Here to the truth that has been indicated in the previous verse is too incomprehensible for the human intellect. Therefore, Sankara tries to give the exact method by which a quietened mind through contemplation can come to experience this great state. To contemplate upon this great truth is called nididhyasana. Very rarely we find in the Upanishadic lore a complete and exhaustive explanation of contemplation and meditation, nididhyasana, though the rishis invariably give us elaborate explanations of listening to the scriptures, sarvana, and reflection upon them, manana. Whenever they expound the technique of meditation, however, they only expound the external adjustment necessary at the body and the environmental levels. But how actually to apply the single pointed mind in contemplation upon that which is indicated by the scriptures is a technique which is very rarely dealt with by them. It is not because the teacher wants to keep them a secret, but because it is impossible to communicate what exactly is to be done at the mental and intellectual levels in the seat of meditation. It is extremely subjective. Here, Sankara, with his poetry and dramatization, has to a large extent, brought out what exactly should be the line of contemplation in the seat of meditation. Here, the nature of Brahma has been depicted. This is not for more reading, not for continuous repetition. It is to help us lift our minds to the experience. This great reality is like space without any impurities or disturbances. In your mind, imagine yourself as the pure state where there is nothing to limit you. Unlimited, illimitable, illimitable, infinite space where there is no other object to condition you. Infinite in dimension, without activity, without any change, nirvikaram. The changes that take place in the relative world are birth, growth, decay, and dissolution. These changes can take place only in the realm of time to limited objects only. In the infinite, no change is ever possible. Again, in it there cannot be any modification within or without. The concept of within and without are only with relation to the body. When we have transcended the body, there can only be one homogeneous experience of the non dual reality. It is without any of these things of the world which we can point out as objects. It is an objectless state of pure awareness. It is self evident. It is the Supreme Brahma. Having known this, what else is there to know? Stanza number 395. व्यक्तव्यं किमु विद्यते बहुधा ब्रह्मैव जीवस्वयं ब्रह्म तज्ज्य गदा ततं नु सकलं ब्रह्माद्वितं श्रुतिः ब्रह्मैवाहमिति प्रभुमतये सन्ते बाह्यासफुटं ब्रह्मीभूय वसन्ति सन्तत चिदा आनंद नेत ध्रुवम्. What is the use of an enlarging upon this subject? The Jiva is nothing but Brahma. The whole expanse of this universe is nothing but Brahma. Shruti points out Brahma as being non-dual, and it is an undeniable fact that those who are enlightened, who have established their identity with Brahma, and who have given up their associations with the outside world, live ever in union with Brahma, eternal knowledge and bliss. Acharya Shankara himself has given us the quintessence of the Advaita philosophy in half a verse. In the state of pure awareness, when the infinite is experienced at that moment of awakening, the experiences that we have had the body, mind, and intellect levels should necessarily be looked upon as illusions when we functioned through those equipments. The world of plurality is not unreal, but interpreted through our equipments at that moment, it is not real. At such a moment, the egocentric entity disowns itself, and therefore the ego is experienced as nothing but Brahma, just as the dreamer rediscovers himself to be the waker. In this great, grand, infinite experience, what more remains to be said? Meaning, there is nothing more to express. No other discussion is possible in that which is non dual. At that moment, the meditator awakens to understand that he is none other than the pure infinite consciousness. This Brahma alone is the essence of which the world of plurality is constituted, just as the waking mind itself is the material cause for all the objects of the dream cosmos. Shruti herself has so often repeated that Brahma is non-dual and one without a second. For that wise man who has awakened through study and reflection to this great truth, expounded in the Upanishads, I am Brahma. There is nothing more to discuss. All discussions are only in the relative field. When the wise man, through discrimination and renunciation, has transcended the world of plurality, has already rejected the perceptions, emotions, and thoughts, and when he has entered this unique experience, what is there for him to talk about? Such a wise man thereafter lives becoming one with Brahma. Brahma Bhuya, awakened to the plane of supreme consciousness, indeed he remains ever steadfast in this great truth. He has awakened and understood that he himself is Brahma. Stanza number 396. Jahi mal मैं कोशे हंदियो पिताशाम परसम्मनि कल्पे लिंगम देहपि पश्चात निगम गदित कीर्तिम नित्य आनंद मूर्तिम सौमिति परिच्ये ब्रह्म रूपेण तिष्ठ. Annihilate the hopes raised by the ego in the gross body, a bundle of filth, then with force do the same with the air-like subtle body, realizing Brahma, the personification of eternal bliss, which the scriptures eulogizes as your own self, live as Brahma. Leave the idea of I am in this body, which is a bundle of facial matter, so beautifully and enchantingly packed. Leave the vulgar sensuous desires arising from this bundle of filth. Then go beyond the air-like subtle body. The mind and intellect are said to be air-like because the thoughts are ever flying all over. Transcend the mind and the intellect. Realize that your nature is that of eternal bliss which has been glorified in the scriptures. Understand that you are nothing but Brahma. Come to the study of Vedanta, determined to experience that you are that. Thus remain and revel in the world as Brahma. Thereafter let the body act and fulfill its own destiny scheme prarabdha. Stanza number 397. Shva akaram yav यावत् भजति मनु जस्तावद् शुचि प्रेम्य सता कलेशो जनन मरण व्याधि नीलियम यदा आत्मनं शुद्धं कलयति शिवा आकरं चलं तदा तेभ्यो मुक्तयो भवति हि तदा श्रुतिरपि. As long as man worships his corpse-like body, he is impure and suffers from others, and from birth, death, and disease. But when he thinks of himself as the pure, the auspicious, the immovable, certainly he becomes free from them. The Shruti also testifies to this. As long as man identifies with his physical body, composed entirely of matter and so lifeless itself, Savakara, he is impure. Even after taking a bath and applying powder and perfume to the body, it remains impure. As long as you identify with it by doing its puja, washing it, powdering it, dressing it, you too are impure. A scavenger you are as long as you carry this filth and polish this body bucket. Naturally, therefore, when you identify with it, you will suffer 1,000 classes from others and you suffer from yourself too. Objectively, you suffer because of the classes with other objects, and subjectively, you suffer from the sequence of the sorrows produced by birth, growth, disease, decay, and death. These five pain-ridden stages of unavoidable modifications must come to every physical body. You will be rid of these sorrows only when you realize the truth. When the truth is realized, you become the immovable substratum that stays behind all movable, changeable, and variable substances. You become the embodiment of auspiciousness, Sivakara. Then alone you are liberated from all suffering. This is the unanimous declaration of the Upanishads. So I conclude this video at this stage. Next video number 26 will start with the topic no diversity in reality and stanza number 398. Thank you for watching this video. Namaskar, my dear friend. Thank you.